Zoom recording. So thank you everybody for showing up today to our webinar on managing overwhelm. You are totally in the right place if at times your business and life feel like it's just completely overwhelming. If you are ready to make changes to improve your balance, then let's get started. Okay. There we go. So if this is where you are, you feel like you're walking on a tightrope. Things appear balanced, but the slightest thing can just tip you over. You feel like you're sitting on the edge of a mountain. You're waiting to tumble when the slightest thing goes wrong. So if that's where you are, hopefully I've got some tips for you today. And this is where you want to be. You want to be a present mum, you want to have a balanced life, and you want to have a successful business. Not a lot of things that, they're not too hard to ask for, those things. So who am I, for those of you who haven't met me? My name's Rachel Allan. I'm a marketer, coach, speaker, author, and a mum. I work in my business 5 days a week during school hours. I have one child, a dog, and a husband who all seem to take up a lot of time. On a whole, I've managed to find balance in my life, learning to be a present mum, to grow my business, and also to keep the domestic stuff happening, the stuff I actually don't enjoy at all. I can find myself in situations where it's all too much. I fall into overwhelm. I've learned some techniques to cope in those situations, and that's why I've put together this webinar today, because I want to share those with you. So what can you expect today? We're going to talk about embracing overwhelm. We're going to look at ways to keep you focused and to increase your productivity in those times that you are feeling overwhelmed. And then we're going to finish off with doing a little exercise around finding your balance. So it's not enough to just acknowledge your problem. You have to do something about it. So at the end of today, hopefully you have some tips and some tools so that when you are feeling overwhelmed, you can do a couple of basic things to make yourself feel better and to keep moving forward. So you have to be able to do something about it. So embracing overwhelm. How many times have you told yourself, I have too much to do and not enough time to do it in? So overwhelm is a symptom of anxiety as well. So sometimes overwhelm can come from your anxiety problems. I'm not going to delve too much into that today. I'm more concerned with the overwhelm that then causes you stress. The things that that's when things really get too much for you and you find it hard to function and to move forward out of that space. I want to recognize that a certain amount of stress is actually good for you. And it's a thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, that keeps you motivated to keep moving through your to-do list. So a certain level of stress is good for you, and it'll be different compared for different people. But if you get too much stress, that's when the overwhelm will step in as well. So overwhelm to you will show up in different ways. Typically, it shows up in physical ways and also in emotional ways. So physically, you might have digestive issues. You could have an increased heart rate, dizziness, nausea. You have problems sleeping. And I'm sure you could recognize some of those in your own life. It can show up in emotional ways. So you might be moody. You might get worried, sad, angry. You feel like you're in that pressure cooker where if someone looks at you sideways, you're just going to explode at them. So they're the ways that overwhelm can show up in your life. And it's a way for you to start recognizing when they do show up, and then you can flip yourself into going through some of the strategies we're going to share today so that you can move through it. Why overwhelm? And this is what Martha Beck had to say about overwhelm. Overwhelm is increasingly common as demands on human attention increase exponentially. The human brain just wasn't designed to handle the environment we inhabit. For the vast majority of world history, human life, both culture and biology, was shaped by scarcity. Food, clothing, shelter, tools, and pretty much everything else had to be farmed or fabricated at a very high cost in time and energy. Knowledge was power, and it was hard to come by. For centuries, books had to be copied by hand and were rare and precious. Even people were scarce. Friends and relatives died young. As late as 1900, the life expectancy in the United States was approximately 49. This kind of scarcity still rules the world's poorest regions, but in the developed world, hundreds of millions of us now face the bizarre problem of excess. Yet our brains, instincts, and socialized behavior are still geared to an environment of lack. The result? Overwhelm on an unprecedented scale. So you think about your own world, your own life, and how we don't have to go hunting for food every day. We don't have to find new shelter every few months. All those basic needs are usually, for most of us, covered off. We live in a fast-paced world. We are doing so much more. We're managing so much more. I know my 7-year-old does a lot more than what I did when I was 7, and she does it at a much higher pace than I ever did. So our worlds are just so different, but our brains haven't evolved and our bodies haven't evolved to be able to keep up with all of that. And that's why we fall into overwhelm. I think sometimes we just need to take a breath and go back to simplicity at times. And that's one strategy that I'll talk about later. So the last time that I felt overwhelmed, I had been dealing with an insurance company and then tradies after our chimney came off our roof and we had to get it repaired and rebuilt. My partner was under stress at work. My daughter was feeling anxious about school due to a bullying issue that she had. My best friend's dad was dying, and my partner and I seemed to be fighting every weekend. When I sat down and thought about it, I was actually taking on everybody else's stress. Everything that I was working on also had an end to it, and most of it within 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of the day that I had my little overwhelm breakdown. The repairs to the roof were underway and would be completed in 2 weeks. My partner's deadline would be done and dusted within 2 weeks. My daughter was about to go on school holidays and have a break from the girl. My best friend's dad would die, and he did within 3 weeks. My partner and I always have disagreements about one particular topic, and I couldn't control the way that he was. All I could do was control my response to that. So fast forward a month and everything I'd been feeling overwhelmed about was gone. My overwhelm, thankfully, was only temporary, but at the time it didn't feel that. So this is the technique that I use when I fall into overwhelm. The first is that I figure out the real problem. What's really making me feel overwhelmed at that point in time? What can I change? If it is going to be an ongoing thing, what can I change? You know, for me, can I change the way I respond to my partner when he gets antsy about this particular topic? How can I change it, the situation, to make it less overwhelming? If I can't change it, how am I going to accept that? So that's literally the technique that I sit down and do. I go, what am I really overwhelmed about? What about that situation can I change, and how can I change it? And if I can't change it, how am I going to accept that situation? It's pretty simple, and it's just going back to the basic, back to the real core of it. Some questions I'd like you to stop and think about at the moment, and I hear all the time from people who say, I'm just too busy. I don't have enough time in the day. Think about the last time maybe you used those excuses, and is it real or is it excuses? Because if you're really too busy in your life, then you need to take control of that and change what you're doing in your life. You need to simplify things. You possibly need to cut stuff out. I'm going to talk about that in a moment when we talk about some of the strategies you can use. If you're thinking about, do you really have no time? You just don't have enough time to do what you want to do. Again, it comes back to that. Are you taking on too much? We all have exactly the same amount of time in a day, but it's how you use it as well. Are you being effective and efficient when you are using your time? When you're at work and you're doing things, are you being the most efficient at that time? And we can't be efficient all the time. I know yesterday morning I got off a coaching call and I sat there for about 2 hours just playing around on my computer and going into Facebook, and I was getting things done, but it wasn't an efficient use of time. But we can't always be focused and have that efficient use of time. But the majority of the time that I sit down and I'm working, I do. So think about the excuses that come up in your mind when you are feeling overwhelmed. You're too busy, you don't have time, there's no support, whatever it is. And try and change that and work out, are they excuses or is it real? So productivity, keeping yourself productive. So the last bit we were talking about focusing on the overwhelm, accepting it, changing it. Now, when you are overwhelmed, how do you actually stay productive and move through it? So I've got lots of strategies I'm going to throw at you now. Not all of them will fit with you in your life. Some of them might. I'm hoping that you might be able to pick out a couple so that next time, or if you're feeling overwhelmed now, you can actually put these into place and become less overwhelmed and less stressed. The first one is talk to someone. Pick the phone up, talk to a friend, talk to, I don't know if you have counsellors, psychologists, or coaches, mentors, a networking group that you connect with. If you are feeling overwhelmed, go and talk to someone and share that problem you have. Sometimes the person you speak to may have a different viewpoint of your overwhelm and be able to help you through it. Go for a walk. Often if I'm sitting at my computer and I find that I've just got like 100 tabs open, I'm jumping from one thing to another and I'm not focused, I just go for a walk. If you can take your shoes off and go barefoot, that actually connects you to the earth more and it will ground you. So if you can do that, go for it. At the start of this call, I was talking about how I've taken to going to the salt rooms. And when you walk into the salt rooms, they have like all the rock salt on the ground. So I now wear no shoes in. You've got to have these little booties on. But I just wear the booties in and I can feel the salt, the rock salt on my feet. And it just feels so good to feel something natural there. Controlled breathing. I know even when my child is giving me a hard time, I'll often stop and just take 3 deep breaths in just to get rid of or to calm myself down and move out of that moment of overwhelm or that moment of stress. Meditation, I'll talk a little bit about meditation through this. Meditation is a brilliant way for you to just clear your mind of all those things that are in there running around. So control breathing. Journal, for some people, it doesn't particularly work for me, but journaling, just writing down your problems, really helps. Some people are so good at this, they do it every night or every morning they wake up and they just start journaling. It can help you to identify the core of what's really the problem at times if you just start writing and keep writing. Only do what you can do. So we were talking about time before. We all have only so much time in a day. So only take on doing the things that you can possibly do in that day and in that time that you have. Also, don't take on too much. You hear those sayings where, accept that you can do something, say yes, and then work out how to do it later. That works to a certain degree, but if someone came to me and asked me to build a car, there's absolutely no way I know how to build a car. I could find people to help me build the car, but it's so far out of my knowledge base that it's just not something that I would say I can do to someone or for someone. So only do what you can do. Be very clear about what your skills are and the workload you have at that time and the time that you have available to do it. And that, just by simply doing that, will help to take a lot of overwhelm away from you, particularly at work. Stay aware of your surroundings. It's very easy when you are feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling stressed, maybe you have some anxiety as well, that you get lost in your thoughts and you get lost in your head and you're listening to your inner voice and you're having those discussions, as I'm sure we all do. If at that point you catch yourself, take some breaths and then start to connect yourself back in with your surroundings. Listen to the birds singing, listen to the cars passing on the road, the dog, the cats, smell the things. Maybe you've got some oils burning or something. Smell what's happening in your environment, as long as it's a nice smell. Touch something, it's where taking your shoes off and grounding yourself really helps as well. So just stay aware of your surroundings so that you can stay calm and you can stay present as well. Question why you are doing what you are doing. Sometimes I get into the middle of a project and I'm like, why am I doing this? This is so not my skill base. This is so not where my head wants to be. I'm not enjoying this. So question things that you do all the time. Just because you've always done it doesn't mean you always have to do it as well. So if something is not lighting you up, filling you up, then if you can, consider stop doing it or do it a different way, change it up. Find time to think, not the inner voices, negative talk stuff, but just time to clear your head. So if journaling's not your thing, maybe meditation is your thing, where you can just listen to another person's voice guide you to relaxation as well. Maybe it's just going and sitting under a tree or sitting in your garden or sitting in a really nice space in your home that you have that is just for you. Find time to go and think and just let your thoughts go. I find this really useful, especially if I'm stuck on a project or stuck on something, or even if my day's getting away from me. If I'm it's a weekend and I'm doing all that domestic stuff and I just need time to stop. Sometimes going and lying down really, really helps. Find real support. Before I said ring someone, talk to someone. Be careful who you just start talking to about your problems, because often some people just don't care. You need to find that support where people are prepared to lift you up. They're prepared to be positive. They may even step in and help you get out of some of that overwhelm. If you've got friends who are inclined to come and cook you a meal or help cook, clean your house, or maybe do some admin in your business or something. You know, find that real support. Say no. I don't know how many times I've told this to women that I coach. Say no with compassion. And if you've ever had someone say no to you who have said it with compassion and said it in a really caring way, you learn to respect that, because people can say no. So learn to say no to things and not take on stuff just because. Action a few smaller things. If you're feeling overwhelmed from your to-do list and you've got this massive list in front of you, sometimes if you just cross off the smaller things, it helps. So I will sometimes just schedule an admin day. And in that admin day, it is all about just getting rid of those 2-minute, 5-minute jobs. Maybe I have half a dozen things that I want to update on my website. So I'll go and do all those updates in one block of time. And then when you look at your to-do list and it's suddenly gone from 100 things down to 50 because you've just got rid of those small jobs, how much better are you going to feel? How much less overwhelmed and stressed will you feel looking at your to-do list? So just action a few smaller things to get you moving, and it'll warm you up for the bigger things as well. Set realistic goals. When I go through a goal set with clients, there's that fine line between thinking really big and also being realistic about what you can achieve. So I always encourage people to think big about their goals, you know, because that's how business growth comes, to step outside your comfort zone, because that's when the magic happens. But make sure it's realistic. If you said you wanted 1,000 new subscribers on your MailChimp list in 2 months' time, and you got to the end of the 2 months and you've only had 20, even though you've worked so hard at it, you're not going to see the success in that. All you'll see is that you didn't get to your 1,000. You won't see that you actually got 20, and those 20 may be really powerful contacts who are going to do business with you. So set realistic goals. Don't set yourself up for failure, because that's when you become unmotivated, you become stressed, and then it's easy to fall into the overwhelm. And then you start listening to that inner voice, those inner heads. Delegate work. I'll often go through, and if you're in your business, and you've probably heard me say this before, if you're in your business and you do the same thing over and over again, then document it. Create a process and a procedure. Then look at automating that task or outsourcing it to somebody else if you can. So never be afraid to delegate. If you have a team that work with you, then that's brilliant. If you have people in your house, delegate it out to those. Delegate it to partners, to kids. I've tried delegating tasks to the dog, it doesn't work, but delegate things out to people. Once you've set up a process and a procedure, delegate it. At all times, be kind to yourself. You know, don't put unrealistic expectations on yourself. Understand what you are capable of and where your happy place is. And we're going to talk about that. I'll give you an exercise to do in a minute. So always be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Okay, just move through those feelings of overwhelm. Prioritize, spelt really wrong, sorry about that. Get rid of the unimportant stuff. So if you look at your to-do list, go through and prioritize it. I just do simple things like number it, 1 to 10 or all ones, and group it together or whatever. Prioritize it so that you get the really important things done first. If you look down your to-do list and you're like, you know what, that's not my to-do, I'm going to get rid of it. Sometimes we have other people's priorities affect our workload. So if you're working on something for your own business and a client wants something, it's their priority that it gets done quickly. You may be able to go, you know what, I actually need to finish this first and then I'll get to your priority. Obviously, telling the client that you've got something on, or you've got multiple clients might be coming at you, all wanting the same thing done at the same time. So prioritize. Get rid of unimportant stuff. I was reading a Facebook post yesterday talking about fluff in your business. All those things that you do because it looks pretty or that everybody else is doing. It's not actually achieving anything for your business. So start getting rid of all that fluff and get into the basics. What makes you money? And prioritize on that. Don't multitask. We are not designed to juggle balls in the air and hope that they don't fall down. Our brains aren't computer screens where you can have 100 different browsers open or whatever. Don't multitask. Finish one task off before you start the other. By doing that, you're going to be focused on the task you're doing, but you're also going to get that sense of completion when you do complete it. You can cross it off your to-do list. Change your energy. If you're starting to hear those excuses coming up, I don't have enough time, I don't have the energy, all of that stuff, change your inner talk. Go to your support community, get lifted up. Change the energy that you're giving out. Fill up your bucket. Do whatever you need to do to fill your bucket up so that you can continue to give out and be positive and have energy in your business and your life. Remember the big picture, which is very closely aligned with setting realistic goals. When you're in that moment of overwhelm, where you feel that everything is just crowding in on top of you, if you can remember why you're in business, what your life purpose is, where you're heading, why you're doing this, you will be able to move forward again because you know you're doing it for a reason. You're not just doing it to get through till tomorrow. Okay, so remember the big picture. And finally, let go of the guilt. Just ditch it. I talk to a lot of mums in business, and thankfully it's going less that way. But we all have this guilt. We can't take time out of our business to go and sit in a spa. We can't go to the movies. We can't, I can't go and give myself something because I need to give to my children first. Forget all of that, because if you're not operating at 100% and you don't have the energy about you, then you're not going to be able to give to the people that you want to give to in your life. I know a couple of weeks ago when I was going through a lot and I was giving to a lot of people, last week was really hard for me. I had the same day that my friend's dad's funeral was on, I also had my daughter has a friend who is in hospital, was in an induced coma in Melbourne. On the exact same day, she was going in for a really important critical operation and needed people to be really thinking about her and sending her lots of power and love and healing. And the same day I also had to give to my friend who was about to go through the worst day of her life, her father's funeral. So for me, I had to keep tapping back into myself and going, I need to keep myself full so that I can give to these people. And it certainly wasn't a day to go to a spa or anything, but I certainly spent some time deep breathing and just nurturing myself in that moment. So let go of the guilt about being able to do that. Fill yourself up so that you can give to those people around you who need you, so you can give to your business as well. And you don't feel overwhelmed. So we're going to finish today. I'll just take a breath. I'm going to finish today by sharing with you an exercise in achieving balance. And I've done this exercise quite a bit with people. You may have done it before, but it's always good to come back to and just tap into it. So balance is not someone else's highlight reels. So stop comparing yourself to those. Balance is not what society expects of you. So stop trying to take over the world, or today anyway. Forget the supermom, superwoman myth. It doesn't exist. Balance is not constant. It's the ebb and the flow of life. What balance is, it's your happy place. So balance is completely different for everybody. If you don't have one in front of you right now, I'd love you to get a pen and a piece of paper, because this exercise is actually you doing something. At the end of the exercise, you will have defined what balance means to you, and you're going to have some strategies to move from overwhelm back into that balanced life. So what I want you to do first is just draw a triangle, like this little three, not even a triangle, three shaped thing. In each of those areas of business, life and self, I would like you to write down what your definition of balance is for those. So in business, it's anything that you do to make money, whether it be a business, a job, shares, property, whatever you do to make money. And what does a balanced life mean for you? Is it, for most people, it's enough money to pay the bills. Or it could be enough money to save to go on holidays, whatever. Write your balance in there. In life, it's things that happen, your daily life, your family, your friends, the house, domestic stuff, holidays, cleaning, cooking, all those things that make up your life. What does balance mean for you in that area of your world? And finally, in self, what are the things that you do for yourself? What are the things that you do to fill up your bucket, to re-energize so you can give to everything else? Do you get your hair done? Do you get your nails done? Do you have a massage? Do you exercise? Do you, eat food or cook food, bake? Do you breathe? That meditation stuff. Do you read books? What do you do for yourself? Then once you have that definition there, that's your ideal. That's where you want to be. Where are you currently? So on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to write in there where you are at the moment. Just give yourself a number, with 1 being totally out of balance and it's out of control, to 10 being you're completely in control and you've nailed it. You are living your ideal life. So for each of those areas, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, just because there's a line there doesn't mean that each of those areas of your life are completely separate. If you have a business that is aligned to your life purpose, it's going to help you in self. If you live a life that is true to you, it will help you in self. If you do things for yourself, it will give energy for your business and life. And often, sometimes you might have a crossover of those things. So it's not definite line separation. Now, in your most controlled area of your life, so the area that has the highest score, think about why you have the highest score there. I know when I've done this exercise, I found my business was the highest score, that I felt the most balance in that, because I spend the most time there, because I have processes and procedures in place to do things. So what lessons can I learn from my business that I can then put into other areas of my life? And for me, processes and procedures really made a difference in my business. So I've also put processes and procedures into my life, into my house, so that all that domestic stuff that nobody enjoys doing gets done, because there is a process there. And everybody in the house is aware of the process. So what can you learn from your area that is the most balanced? And then how can you change the areas that you're not so balanced in so that you can become more balanced? And while you're thinking about that, write down 3 actions, because they're your 3 takeaways that you're going to take away from today, that you're going to make those changes somewhere in your life, in your business, or for yourself, that will see you achieve balance, that will see you be able to move out of overwhelm and move back into balance whenever you're feeling stressed. If you would like some more help in this area, I offer clarity calls, which are 30-minute calls that just help you gain clarity over your life or business. If you haven't already done that exercise, we often start with that, and then we look at your actions, and someone else helping you with that and giving their input as well can be really useful. So we have clarity calls. We also have accountability pods, which is a 10-week program where you meet with like-minded people and stay accountable to your goals. And this is business related. You meet online 4 times over a 10-week period in structured sessions. And our next intake will be for term 4 this year. You can also book some coaching with me as well. So I've coached hundreds of businesses, and my coaching packages will suit you. They can be in areas of your life or your business or marketing. So they'll help you to gain clarity and move forward with that as well. As my gift to you today for listening to this webinar, not only have I gifted you all my knowledge on this area, but I'm also offering a very special package where you get a clarity session, you get the accountability pods, which for term 4, and you get a copy of my book, When Business Meets Baby, which is practical tips and tools to achieving balance. It's a value of $162, and today I'm giving that to you for just $55. So you can follow that link. I will also email you with the link and also the recording to this session. I would like to thank you very much for tuning in today. We have some very exciting events coming up. Our next Knowledge Exchange webinar is on MailChimp 101. So are you using all the functionality in MailChimp and getting the best out of it? And our Marketing Conversations event, which is always popular, our next one is on September 19th. So far, I have managed to confirm Kate Toon, so excited, who's going to talk to us about SEO. Jemima Ashley, who's going to be talking about social media and showing up authentically on that. Linda Reed Enever, who's going to come and talk to us about strategy, social media and websites and everything digital. And so that's a really exciting lineup, and there's more people to be confirmed soon. Registration for all of those events will be coming out in this email and in the links. So I am just going to